Hello class, for today we're going to be talking about perpendicular lines part 2. Particularly, we are going to see how if I give you the equation and they give you a particular point that needs to be going through and it's perpendicular to the given equation, how do you solve questions for something like that? Okay, so let's get started with the homework questions that I asked you to do. For these I hope everyone found this to be very simple because all you have to do is just find the slope of any parallel and perpendicular lines. Now remember, the magic word that we want to associate with parallel lines is that the slope is always going to be the same thing. Perpendicular lines means that they're negative reciprocal, which means that you gotta flip them over and put a negative sign in front of it. So for any parallel lines, you're just gonna copy and paste all of the slopes. You're just gonna have to say, okay, so if the slope of a given line is 2, then the slope of any given a parallel line to that must also be 2. That's going to be a standard issue for everything. So 2 over 9 and 2. Now, if I'm given a slope of 2 and I ask you to write down a perpendicular line, that means I always want to see the 2 as 2 over 1. You flip them around and you put a negative sign in front of it. So you're going to get something called negative reciprocal slope of the first given slope. The next one here, 10, would be negative 1 over 10 for the same exact reason. 3 over 4 would mean that I will flip the 3 and the 4 up and down, so it would be 4 over 3, put a negative sign in front of it. 9 over 2, and again, I don't know why we have 2 twice like this, but these are going to be the answer. This would be 1/2 right here. Next, 5 over 8, 4, 6 over 11, 4, 5 over 11. Again, all of the parallel slopes are going to be the same. If they're perpendicular, remember that you just have to flip them over. So negative 8 over 5, negative 1 over 4, negative 11 over 6, negative 1 over 4 once again, negative 11 over 5. Okay, so we have the same questions again for 7 and 9. But again, flip them over and put a negative sign in front of it. Okay, so now these questions are going to be dealing with your homework problems. Are these two lines going to be perpendicular or not? So the lines passing through the points 4, negative 3, and 6, 2, and the line passing through the points 3, negative 2, and 13, 2. Alright, so for these, what we want to do is we want to find the slope of each of these guys. Remember, to find the slope, it's y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the slopes between the two and say 2 minus negative 3 over 6 minus 4. Why? Because the second one is y2, the first one is y1. I'm talking about the second coordinate. So whatever is the second coordinate of each parentheses, that's your y's. And the first coordinate of each, those are your x's. So if you were to plug them in right away, you will get 2 minus negative 3 over 6 minus 4. You get 5 over 2. And then if you find the slope for the second one, again, we do y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And so you're going to get 2 minus negative 2 over 13 minus 3. Once again, you want to subtract the 2 with the negative 2, 13 with the 3, like in that order. There'll be 4 over 9. Oh, I'm sorry, that's not a 9, that's a 10. And when you reduce these two by dividing both by 2's, you get 2 over 5. Now, if you take a look at these two slopes, you might say that, oh, well, they are reciprocal of each other. But does that make it perpendicular? The answer is absolutely no. What am I missing here? I am missing the negative sign. But since I am not given the negative sign when I solve for these, I am not going to get the correct answer here. So you're going to say, no, they are not perpendicular, even though it's reciprocal. It does not have the negative portion. So absolutely not. Try number 18 on your own. And pause the video now and then check once you're ready. Okay, so for the lines passing through these 2 points, negative 1, 7, so negative 1 minus 7, 3 minus 2, you're going to get negative 8 over 1. Now with these two, I'm going to say negative 5 minus negative 4, negative 2 minus 6. This would give me negative 1 over, I believe, negative 8. But the two negatives will cancel out, so it will give you 1 over 8. So the slopes are definitely indeed negative reciprocal of each other, so they are going to be perpendicular. Alright, this is the last portion for today. Find the equation in standard form of the line perpendicular to y is equal to negative 5 over 7x plus 3 and passing through the point 15, comma 2. So again, this is kind of very similar to the questions we did for parallel lines. When you get the slope here and when you take a look at the point here, and you're going to only be utilizing those two. The slope that's given to us is negative 5 over 7. Remember the table that we did for the homework and I asked you for parallel lines and perpendicular lines? Well, parallel lines, we're not going to be dealing with that any longer because we already know how to do that. We're going to be looking at the perpendicular slopes. Okay, so if the slope is negative 5 over 7 and I'm looking for perpendicular slope to that, what would that really equal? Well, it's always going to be a negative reciprocal of each other, right? Okay, so what is a negative reciprocal version of negative 5 over 7? Well, first you have to flip them over. And then you have to put a negative sign in front of another negative sign because double negatives. Then that makes it a positive. So the slope we are now dealing with is 7 over 5. This is the slope that we're dealing with. After that, you're doing the same exact steps as you have done before with the parallel lines, which is y equals mx plus b, and then you're going to plug in your slope, and then you're going to plug in your testing point, or the point that's going through, into your y and into your x. Well, specifically, what into y and what into x. The first coordinate is always going to be your x. The second coordinate is always going to be your y. So once you plug it in, you get 2 is equal to 7 over 5 times 15, because this 2 is your y, this 15 is your x. The slope is 7 over 5 plus b. Now, if you multiply, 2 is equal to, remember how I told you to multiply the number with a slope? It's 7 over 5 multiplied by 15 over 1 plus b. So 7 times 15, that will give you 105 over 5 plus b. If you divide these two together, you get 21 plus b. So that means my b value, if you subtract 21 on both sides of the equation, you get negative 19. So my equation would be y is equal to, overall, 7 over 5x minus 19, and this would be my answer. You plug in your b, you plug in your original slope from what you got as perpendicular slope, y equals 7 over 5x minus 19. And so now with these two equations in mind, okay, one of them says y equals negative 5 over 7x plus 3. The other one says y equals 7 over 5x minus 19. Let's verify using Desmos. Alright, so one of them says negative 5 over 7. Maybe I should just delete this. 5 divided by 7 x. And then what was it, plus 3? And the other one was just 7 over 5x. Minus 19. Alright, so there we go. So you can see how clearly, if I were to maybe just rotate this around, you can see how red and the black line will make a 90 degrees angle. Okay. Alright, so let's take a look at the last question. So this is the question that I'm going to ask you guys to do for homework along with two other ones. But it's basically pretty much the same steps as before. Right now, what I would like you to do is please take a moment to try this question on your own. And if you would like to type it in the chat for the, for the Zoom, you can type it in and I'll verify it for you for kind of like an exit ticket. But this will be also shown on your homework. So, you get a free question off of the things to do list for your homework. Okay. All right. Well, that's it for today. I hope you guys understood just a little bit more about how to find out the equation when you are given a slope and a given point that it needs to go through. Remember, perpendicular slopes always, you take a look at the slope and have to find the negative reciprocal of that. That is an absolute must for perpendicular lines. I hope you have a good day, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.